Coming in as the first entry on our list at number 10, we've got to go with Kuin, the teenage alien clone. During a misadventure that saw Wolverine stranded on a planet at the edge of the cosmos, far away from any other X-Men or Avengers, he found himself coming face to face with a young boy that seemed to share his exact power set, including an adamantium skeleton. Named Kuin, this boy is eventually revealed to have been created by an alien race that worships Wolverine and sees him as a missing link needed to create the ultimate being. Unfortunately, it's also implied that the cloning process was imperfect and that the adamantium attached to Kuin's bones might not be able to grow with the rest of his body, leaving this story just as tragic as it is odd. Coming in at number 9, we have Jimmy Hudson, the son of Ultimate Wolverine. In the Ultimate Marvel Universe, things weren't looking too hot. Magneto had gone off the deep end and murdered a large portion of both the world population and the entirety of the X-Men, even killing Wolverine with a blast powerful enough to rip the adamantium off his bones. Following this universe-changing event, a young boy named Jimmy Hudson was gifted a post-death holographic message from Wolverine revealing himself to be the kid's father. With the same healing factor and claws as his dad, along with the ability to change what substance his claws are actually made of, Jimmy Hudson was an ideal candidate as the X-Men looked to reform after the death of so many members. Coming in at number 8, we've got to go with Torrent. On the alternate world of Earth 9811, the planet was never reverted back from being a patchwork of different realities named Battleworld, and led to many superheroes deciding to settle down on this new plane of existence. Born to Wolverine and Storm, Torrent was a hot-tempered young mutant who possessed both the power to manipulate the weather and heal back from any injury, an incredibly powerful combo that meant she had little to fear when summoning some trademark lightning. Joining a new team of X-Men determined to wipe the robotic Sentinels off their new home, Torrent is definitely a mutant you do not want to mess with. Coming in at number 7, we have Saberclaw. Hailing from Earth 98-2, this son of Wolverine and an unknown woman absolutely hates his father. So much so that it seems to have literally changed him into appearing more reminiscent of Sabretooth than his actual dad. Wearing adamantium sheaths on his bone claws to make them even deadlier, Saberclaw was briefly a member of this universe's Sinister Six before eventually being convinced to put his differences aside with his father and help defend the world from the threat of Galactus and the daughter of Loki. Just another day in the wonderful world of weird comic book family dynamics. Coming in at number 6, we've got to go with Wild Thing. Hailing from the same universe as her half-brother Saberclaw, this daughter of Wolverine and the ninja Elektra has managed to stay on the side of good and become a teenage superhero that would be notable even without famous parents. With increased speed, strength, and the ability to create claws out of pure psychic energy, Wild Thing is an incredibly powerful mutant that showcases the best influences of the X-Men and proves that even when the first generation is ready to retire, there'll always be an angry clawed mutant ready to protect the X-Men name. Coming in at number 5, we have the villainous Raze Darkholme. Hailing from a dark alternate future where Wolverine and Mystique had a son, Raze is an even more powerful shapeshifter than his mother, with all of the bloodlust and rage of his father unleashed. Traveling to the main Marvel timeline and impersonating Kitty Pryde in order to get close enough to strike at his father, Raze planned to wipe out humanity in this reality in order to create a safe haven across the multiverse for all of mutant kind, and was willing to do anything and impersonate anyone to achieve it. Coming in at number 4, we've got to go with something a little more live action than the rest of these comic books, with X-24 from the movie Logan. An allegedly perfect clone of Wolverine, but with none of the compassion or humanity, X-24 was treated like an attack dog and followed the orders of Xander Rice to hunt down and capture the real Wolverine and the young mutant girl he was protecting. Based on Wolverine during his prime years, he was able to physically overcome the true Wolverine and was only able to be defeated by a bullet made of pure adamantium to the back of the head. Talk about overkill. Coming in at number 3, we have Hulk Jr. And no, I promise this didn't suddenly become a list about Bruce Banner's kids. In the alternate future that's often seen in stories involving Old Man Logan, Hulk Jr. is the last surviving grandson of Bruce Banner, and the last member of the infamous and cannibalistic Hulk gang. Following their defeat by Wolverine, Logan decided to raise this young gamma-mutated child as a member of his own family. So, while the two might not be biologically related, Hulk Jr. grew into a heroic figure because of how he was raised, and would go on to start a new generation of heroes on this post-apocalyptic world, bringing some hope to a land filled with tragedy. Coming in at number 2, we have Laura Kinney, aka X-23. Created by the Weapon X project when they were attempting to remake the success of Wolverine with a genetic sample that had a damaged Y chromosome, Laura is otherwise a perfect clone of Logan in every way. While her early years were traumatic and occasionally brought her into conflict with Wolverine and the X-Men, in recent years she's actually taken up the name of Wolverine herself, living up to the title that's inspired mutants for generations and helping carve out a new place for mutant kind in a new world. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Daken, the dark son of Wolverine. Named after the Japanese term for mongrel dog or bastard, Daken is the tragic child that Wolverine never knew about, his mother being murdered before Wolverine even knew he had a son. Cut from his mother's body, Daken was raised to hate his father, and in their very first encounter slashed open his stomach and left him to bleed to death. With the same incredible healing abilities and bone claws as his dad, Daken has had a long road of trying to find his proper place in the world, and has fought on the sides of both good and evil over the course of his tragic life. In recent years though, Daken does seem to have found some sense of belonging on the island of Krakoa, and has recently become a member of the new X-Factor team. Let's hope he can catch a little bit of a break from his life being so angsty.
Number 10. Lasher. Lasher is one of the symbiotes that Venom was forced to give birth to by the Life Foundation, who kidnapped the symbiote in order to make Venom make more symbiotes for them. Which is really messed up and explains why the Venom symbiote was so apprehensive when it was pregnant following its experience with the Life Foundation. Each symbiote that it gave birth to with the Life Foundation seemed to have its own special powers, and Lasher's was that they could remote control from a distance a non-sentient host in addition to their main one, using this other host as a form of reconnaissance or like a scout, or simply to just be in two places at once, which is pretty cool. I've always wanted to be able to be in multiple places at once. I could get so many things done. Number 9. Dylan. Dylan might not initially seem like a child of Venom, but in a way he is. In fact, it's even been suggested that he might actually be a part of Venom, a piece of the symbiote broken off and molded into something new, or at the very least blended with something new. Venom was a genetic contributor at the time of Dylan's conception, as Anne Wang, his mother, was bonded with the Venom symbiote when she became pregnant with Dylan. Dylan is therefore kind of like Eddie's, Anne's, and Venom's child all together. Dylan initially demonstrated powers which allowed him to control and bend symbiotes to his will, in addition to repelling and resisting them if they wanted to bond to him and he didn't want to. This made him insanely powerful. However, during the King in Black event, he lost this power, which it turns out was attached to the God of Light when his father Eddie Brock destroyed Null, who was attempting to take hold of Dylan's body via the living abyss inside him. As it stands now, Dylan is bonded with the Venom symbiote, which grants him some power, but he is also still very new to this whole thing, meaning he's not particularly skilled or really powerful just yet, which is why I ranked him so low. So low, despite his cool powers he once had that were pretty unique. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Venom lists, you want to learn about more of the Venom family, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Riot. Riot is also known as being one of the strongest symbiotes to have come from the ones Venom gave birth to while being kept prisoner by the Life Foundation. Riot is often suggested to be the strongest of the litter, at least the physically strongest. He is the most buff of the litter, and he has also been referred to as Mr. Riot, which is a name I honestly love a lot. Because of Riot's inherent super strength, the symbiote generally prefers to use its tendrils to create blunt force weapons, which it can then use in combat against its opponents, or to brute strength force its way through any obstacles in its path. Riot Smash. Mr. Riot Smash. Number 7. Scream. Scream was maybe one of the most powerful of the forcibly birthed Life Foundation offspring of Venom, and I mean powerful just in the overall sense. I say was as well because technically Scream was destroyed by Andy Benton, its latest host. In fact, with Andy it was also at its most powerful, as Andy could also summon and wield Hellfire, which it would be immune to so long as Andy willed that. Unfortunately, in the end, the Scream symbiote and Andy ended up in a fight against one another where Andy was forced to defend herself using the very same Hellfire against Scream this time, as opposed to with Scream. This unfortunately kills the symbiote. While it was alive, Scream's powers were similar to the Venom symbiote, which included the added level up of creating wings for itself and using those wings to fly around, and the unique ability of turning its tendrils into hair that they could then manipulate at will, similar to Medusa of the Inhumans. Also, I just like hair powers, I think they're cool. Number 6. Hybrid. Hybrid is the combination of 4 of the Life Foundation symbiotes, all of which were forcibly created offspring of Venom. Hybrid is the entity that exists when Phage, Agony, Lasher, and Riot come together. Being a combined symbiote, Hybrid has all the powers of the individual symbiotes that make it up. Mostly this means it has powers similar to relatives such as Venom and Carnage, but it can also absorb chemicals, produce acid which it can use to attack with, balance the emotions of its host, and can remote control a smaller non-sentient host such as a dog, while still maintaining a bond with its main sentient host at the same time, which obviously that's a power that comes from Lasher. Number 5. Sleeper. Sleeper is the sibling of Dylan and also the 7th symbiote baby of Venom. They are most definitely thought of as Dylan's sibling, as the challenging pregnancy that Venom went through to give birth to Sleeper was not something carried entirely alone. In fact, Eddie even helped directly with this birth, and it was perhaps one of the first pregnancies that was more openly discussed with Eddie, Venom's partner. Eventually at least. And of course in comparison to the other symbiote babies that Venom has had while with Eddie, which I feel like Venom normally didn't even talk about at all, especially with Carnage. Carnage was like, what? And then later Eddie was like, what was that? And I was like, oh, I had a baby, whatever. Sleeper seems to be autonomous and doesn't specifically need a host, unlike some other symbiotes, especially in those early comic book days. I mean, back in the day, Venom was like, if I don't have a host, I'm literally gonna die. In this way, Sleeper is more of a giver, where their host would benefit more from their bond as opposed to the other way around. Sleeper boosts the abilities of its host and provides the additional power of producing various chemicals, some of which can be used to influence the emotional response of enemies, bending them to their will, making them sleepy, making them less aware so Sleeper can like sneak around more easily. Lots of cool stuff. And technically Sleeper can also kind of use those chemicals to like get a little bit of telepathy going on, which is pretty cool. Number 4. Carnage. Definitely one of the most powerful children of Venom out there, and one that we can't have a list without would be Carnage. Carnage is much more ruthless than Venom and much more prone to violence, though this is likely because of the influence of this symbiote's first and main host, and often their chosen host to this day, Cletus Cassidy, notorious serial killer. Carnage has proven to be so powerful that on countless occasions it's required both Spider-Man and Venom, and oftentimes a whole assembly of other superpowered beings to put a stop to them. Even when others think they can somehow control Carnage, the symbiote has proven to be unstoppable and much too much to handle in most cases. Not only that, but even when Carnage turns to the side of good during the events of Axis, they still prove to be super deadly due to how deranged they are. Even when Carnage was like, I'm gonna be a hero, it was a rough time. Cletus Cassidy inside was like, I don't really know how to be a hero. Do we still kill people? Can I still chop this person up? I like them. I want to chop them up. Number 3. Toxin. Toxin isn't specifically a child of Venom, but is more their grandchild, I suppose. Toxin is an offspring of Carnage, but is believed to be even more powerful than both Carnage and Venom combined. Toxin has all the powers of Carnage, but is believed to be stronger. Additionally, it is said that they have a more strong resistance to heat and sonic waves, making them a tougher opponent in most cases. While Toxin definitely has a dark side, they can also be reined in, which is what their first host, Patrick Mulligan, tried to focus on helping them with, mentoring them and trying to help them learn how to become a hero. So despite Toxin coming from Carnage, they're not inherently bad, though they definitely do have a little bit of a Carnage streak running through them. That's what happens when you're Carnage's child, I guess. Number 2. Silence. Silence was actually what came out of Scream's death. Andy Benton bonded with Silence, believing the symbiote at first to be Scream. In reality, Silence was made out of Scream's remains combined with anti-venom, making it much more powerful in theory than Scream. Technically, it is not a direct child of Venom, but it was made out of the remains of Venom's child Scream, and Venom's sibling, in a sense, anti-venom, known for being one of the most powerful symbiotes around. So because of this, I'm gonna count it as a relative slash offspring of sorts, albeit a very weird, very comic book complicated one. I mean, it's kind of like a clone of Venom's child, but then also like kind of part Venom's sibling, so yeah, I don't know. Number 1. Codex. This is technically an alternate future version of Dylan where he becomes a version of the King in Black instead of his dad. Well, at least a version of that on Earth. We meet this version of the character in Venom in the arc prior to the King in Black event. Dylan and Eddie of Earth 616 must team up in order to defeat this alternate god mode version of Dylan, who has become ruler of Earth, creating his own hive mind of symbiotes there that he himself controls. Now, if you thought Null was scary, then you would probably also really love this story featuring Dylan of Earth 1051, known at first as Codex. This version of Dylan would fall under the influence of Null, which was ultimately what turned him dark. Dylan of Earth 616 and his father would help to break the influence Null had over Codex, only for him to fall into a coma and then later be pursued and bonded with by Carnage. Dylan as Carnage in this reality made him even more terrifying than he'd been as Codex. Once more he ruled the Earth, but this time a lot more sadistically, killing and tormenting its inhabitants as he pleased. Number 10. Etta and Vicky Trevor. These two hail from a very dark reality, the alternate Earth number 34 from the DC multiverse. Here, Wonder Woman's home was invaded by the British military and she ended up being enslaved and taken away when she was young, kidnapped, and brought to London, where she grew up poor on the streets. Eventually, she was taken in by the evil Captain Stephen Trevor of the universe, who paraded her around as an Amazonian oddity, profiting off of her and eventually also marrying her. Because I guess that's what you do when you profit off of someone in London in this evil time. The couple had 2 children together, and while we don't know if they discovered their powers, we can assume they eventually would, as Diana herself did, and use them to oppose an evil king and save those who cannot save themselves, becoming known as the hero Wonder Woman. Number 9. John. John is pretty young still on the alternate world of Earth 31, the Dark Knight Returns reality, but it is still possible he could grow up to be stronger than most on this list. Still, because he's so young is why he's getting ranked so low to start us off. John is the son of Wonder Woman and Superman, and there is a good chance that he will become just as powerful, possibly even more powerful than his sister, who already is known for her strength and abilities in this reality. He's got a lot of potential, basically. And my friends, before we move on to the next spot, if you are loving this list as much as I am loving giving it to ya, then please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Wonder Girl. Wonder Girl is Stephanie Trevor, the daughter of Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman from the alternate Earth of 3839. She first appeared in Superman and Batman Generations 2, issue number 1. She was created by John Byrne. I love Byrne, by the way. She was actually born the same year as Superman and Lois Lane had their daughter in this reality, Kara Kent. In the future, she'd go on to take over her mother's mantle of Wonder Woman. Her powers are similar to those of her mother. She has a divine empowerment that gives her godlike agility, strength, and durability due to her Amazonian heritage and due to being Diana's daughter. Number 7. Hunter Prince. Hunter Prince comes to us from Justice League Legacy. Initially, people were not sure who Hunter's father was, with many speculating that it could could be Superman or Batman. However, in truth, his dad was less of a man or super and more of a cosmic entity known as the Darkness. It was because of the fear within Diana after her exposure to the darkness that caused her to conceive Hunter. After being born, Diana entrusted friends Superman and Lois Lane to raise her son, but Hunter would come to believe that Diana had given him up because he was a boy, creating tension between him and her when they met after he traveled back in time. Hunter, like many of Wonder Woman's other children, possesses godlike superhuman abilities due to him being born of an Amazon. But I don't think we consider him an Amazon because he's a guy. I don't know. Maybe Hunter's like the first male Amazon. I like to think of it that way. Number 6. Fury. This daughter of Wonder Woman hails from pre-crisis Earth 2 and her name is Hippolyta Trevor. Her nickname would become Lita and she would take on the superhero name of Fury. However, this was Lita's story pre-crisis, and post-crisis she would have her origins changed completely, with her no longer being the Wonder Woman of Earth 2's daughter, as Wonder Woman of Earth 2 had basically been erased from existence. However, there was a time when she was the daughter of Diana and her love Steve Trevor, and while Fury's character was changed, you can still go back and actually read stories from that previous continuity before the reset happened. Lita was known for her super jumping powers, her super strength, and her godlike agility. She was also a super skilled combatant being trained by her mother. Number 5. Fury. So yeah, there are 2 Furies. This one is also from Earth 2, but from a later version in continuity, and is an interesting daughter of Wonder Woman. Her real name is Donna of Amazon Island. She hails from Earth 2 and is the daughter of Steppenwolf and Wonder Woman. Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened with this pairing or how it happened or what's going on there, as it was never really fully explained, but we do know that it happened and that the two had a daughter together. Because Fury is the daughter of both of these amazing warriors, much of her power level comes from their prowess as well as her Amazonian heritage. She is not only strong, durable, swift, and immortal, but is also known for her brilliant mind as well. Amazons really do have it all. Number 4. Bruce Kent. Bruce Kent is the son of Wonder Woman and Superman from the Superman Distant Fires comic. Because everyone loves when Superman and Wonder Woman get together, settle down, and have kids. It's just what people are into. Bruce Kent, being born of both heroes, inherited many of his father's powers, which means he's pretty powerful. He ended up being sent away, however, by Superman when he was younger, which means that he might not have learned as much from his mother and father as some of Wonder Woman's other kids. However, he's still pretty OP, hence why he's on the list. Number 3. Supergirl. Lara is the daughter of Wonder Woman and Superman from the Dark Knight Returns reality of Earth 31. She's Jon's older sister. She made her first appearance in Dark Knight Strikes Again and was created by Frank Miller. Because she is the daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman, there is almost nothing Lara can't do between her Kryptonian and her Amazonian heritage and powers together. She is an amazingly skilled fighter with a strong will and also possesses abilities similar to her father. Number 2. Hyperman. Hyperman is the son of Wonder Woman and Superman from the reality of Earth 22, the Kingdom Come universe. There, Wonder Woman and Superman would end up together, and once their son was born, ask Batman to be his godfather and also help raise and train him. Unfortunately, the youngster ended up being kidnapped before any of this could take place. As while being taken, he made a connection with Hypertime that basically gave him dominion over it. He would slip into Hypertime to be raised by an older version of himself and act as a guardian of time and reality, aka Hypertime. Because of his connection to Hypertime, he would therefore also possess the ability to travel to alternate worlds, dimensions, and through time, which I think is pretty powerful. You're winning. You're one of the tops. Number 1. Dream. So, okay, this is a really trippy one, and I'm obviously really excited to tell you about it. Technically, the new, or current Dream, if you will, Daniel, is the grandson of Wonder Woman. Sort of. Not really, but sort of. Just follow me here. Remember Hippolyta Trevor, aka Lita, aka Fury, who was once the daughter of Wonder Woman and Steve before that Origins was retconned out of existence? Daniel was Lita's son, but he came to be so after her Origins were retconned. In a weird way, this makes him kind of Wonder Woman's alternate reality grandson. Of course, Lita, who would go on to get married and become known as Lita Hall, lost her child to the original Dream, aka Morpheus, who knew that Daniel was meant to become the new version of him once he passed on, as the Endless never really died, but instead just change as time passes. Daniel therefore isn't really Daniel even anymore, and Lita is no longer Wonder Woman's daughter, but still, Daniel has acknowledged his connection and relation to Diana, and because he is a member of the Endless, is one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe. So hence why he's the most powerful child of Wonder Woman. Family member of Wonder Woman? I'm gonna count it. I feel like grandsons should count as a form of children. You know, even alternate reality grandsons. Number 10. Keep. In a strange way, Keep is a child of Asgardia, created by Amora the Enchantress using Donald Blake, but was also Enchantress's lover. So yeah, she was like his mother and his lover. Ugh. Keep would do anything for Enchantress and loved her dearly and unconditionally. He was also strong enough to take on Thor in battle, and although he didn't win the day, he at least survived and held his own. Keep was a character created by Matt Friction and Pepe Larraz, who appeared in a few story arcs where we got to see him created by Enchantress and become her ally as she fought against Thor, using Donald Blake to torment him, and also attempted to put Thor on trial. However, we haven't seen Keep for some time in the comics since. Probably because he was kinda weird. But also he was kinda cool, so I don't know. I don't know if anyone else remembers Keep. Number 9. Tess Black. Tess Black is one of the daughters of Loki, whom he sired with a mortal human woman. However, we never learn of her mother's name. We just know that she is Loki's daughter and is living in New York when Morwen, a sorceress of chaos, takes hold of her, using her as a host body. When Morwen learns of Tess Black's origins, she says that this explains why her strength has been bolstered and improved, since Tess is technically a demigoddess. Although, while in her mortal form, we haven't seen her wield any of her powers generally known to belong to someone of such strength, though that could simply be because she's completely unaware that she's related to the Asgardian god of mischief. Spider-Man and Loki teamed up to take down Morwen, but following that, Loki made sure Tess had no memory of the experience or of her relation to him. So she's probably just wandering around right now as like a normal human. And before we move on to this next spot, just a reminder to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help us out here at the channel, and thank you to everyone who's already done that. Thank you. Number 8. Tauren. Tauren is the daughter of Sif and Thor in the animated universe of Earth 555326, belonging to Next Avengers Heroes of Tomorrow. Tauren learned that Ultron had defeated the Avengers and ended up mostly being raised and trained by surviving member Tony Stark. When Tony was kidnapped, she helped to rescue him and also joined her fellow young Next Avengers team in an attempt to recruit the surviving Bruce Banner to their cause as Hulk. In the end, it was revealed her father had actually been with her all along in spirit, as he was actually safe in Asgard and had left Tauren alone on Earth merely to help his daughter learn humility, as his father Odin had done to him before her. Thor returned to her just as she needed him on the Bifrost Bridge and offered Tauren a place in Asgard where she would live as its rightful princess, but she decided not to go with him, instead choosing to return to her fellow friends and heroes. Instead, Thor gifted her new Asgardian armor to take back with her. Number 7. Magni. Magni comes to us from the alternate universe of Earth 3515, one that Thor realized he had to destroy because of how much he had royally messed it up. In this alternate future reality, Thor and Asgard ended up conquering Earth, facing off with Earth's mightiest heroes and winning against them. Magni was his son, born after this great victory. Magni's father is Thor and his mother is Amora the Enchantress. Magni ended up falling in love with a mortal woman, and through this experience realized all the wrongdoings of his father in ruling Earth and ruling it pretty unjustly. He ended up allying with the exiled Lady Sif, and together the two confronted the unworthy Thor about it. In the end, this confrontation and an unexpected attack made Thor realize the error of his ways, and he undid the events that led to this future, erasing it, and also erasing Magni, sadly. Bye. Number 6. Hela. Hela, like in Norse mythology, is believed to be the daughter of Loki, as well as in Marvel Comics. Although in the MCU, we see a different version of her in contrast to the main continuity of Earth 616, where in the MCU she is instead presented as having an origins to be Thor's long-lost sister as opposed to his niece, which also makes her the sister as opposed to the daughter of Loki. Hela was prophesied to be a great danger to Asgard, and as such was made the ruler of Hell and the goddess of the dead. However, Odin wanted to maintain rule over the souls of Asgard and the souls of those who paid tribute to the Asgardian gods, worshipping them. This only made Hela vengeful towards her family and made her long for the souls of Asgard, and especially Odin, and usually Thor. Everyone wants Thor's soul, it's a hot commodity. Number 5. Vidar. Vidar was the son of Odin and Grid, the storm giantess. Just because Odin later ended up with Frigga did not mean he didn't have children with other women. Back in the 90s, when Marvel was trying to make Thor, and everyone else for that matter, look super edgy in comics, we learned of Vidar's fate. He ended up being banished soon after Odin married Frigga. Later on, following the events of Ragnarok, it was discovered that Vidar had perished during the fray. Vidar also at one point lost his love Sylvie, big while banished by Odin for being part giant, part Asgardian. And yet, because he was neither, giants ended up attacking and killing his wife. Her fate he blamed on Odin, who cast him out and yet still kept Mad Loki close. I gotta be honest, this seems pretty unfair, Odin. Why'd you do this? Also, just a quick apology for all of those names that I potentially said wrong. I'm trying here. Number 4, Sif. Lady Sif is not just of Asgard, she is also an Asgardian warrior goddess. She is known for being a strong and fearsome warrior and noble fighter alongside her beloved Thor. While they have had an on and off relationship for some time, it seems she is often tormented by Thor's brother Loki because of Thor's general undying love for Sif. Originally, Sif had blonde hair, but Loki actually cut it all off to spite Thor, and then was made to give Sif back her hair again. However, instead of giving her golden hair, he had long black strands of night woven into hair for her. However, Thor loved her even more with dark hair, so the joke was on him. Loki has also possessed Sif's body before just to get back at Thor. Despite all of this torment, however, Sif still remains a fearsome warrior who rarely shies away from a fight or from conflict in general, even if it means pointing a sword at Kid Loki. Number 3, Brunhilde. Although we don't know specifically who Brunhilde's parents were, we do know that she is an Asgardian goddess and therefore a child of Asgard. She was chosen by Odin himself to become his Valkyrie and was given the responsibility of guiding and choosing the warriors who died in battle with honor to go up to Valhalla. She was in fact the leader of the Valkyror, an entire group of warrior goddesses tasked with this important responsibility to lift up the fallen mortals who worshipped the Asgardian gods and were deemed worthy in death. It's also believed that Brunhilde was cast out to become a mortal woman for defying Odin and ended up as a lover to one of Thor's mortal reincarnations, Siegfried. Although neither she nor Thor remembers these events, as Odin wiped their memories of them when he gave them immortal life once more, following both their mortal deaths. She is currently believed dead after dying at the hands of Malekith during the War of the Realms event. Sad. Number 2, Loki. Despite being born of the Frost Giants, Loki is still widely acknowledged as an Asgardian, having been adopted at a young age by Odin and Frigga. He was raised as one of their own, and although he has often felt like an outsider and been a thorn in their side and the side of his brother Thor, Loki is still considered very much an important member of the family. While he has tricked his family members on multiple occasions and put them in harm's way, he has also sought to help them too many times. We've also seen many different versions of Loki over the years, some who are kinder to his family members, while others that are more cruel. Him being such an ever-changing character is also what makes him one of the most interesting Asgardians out there. Number 1, Thor. Although Thor is now largely recognized as being a man grown, he is also the son of Odin, which makes him a child of Asgard, back when he was a child and even now. Thor is one of the mightiest Asgardians and also the one who has the closest connection to Midgard and Earth, despite his father's general lack of interest in that place. In fact, this tends to be a point of contention between the two, where Odin often wishes his son was less attached to humans and more interested in serving the interests of Asgard alone. When it comes to Asgardians, Thor is one of the most notable and easily recognized.
And at 10, Barry Allen. Okay, I know you're probably confused with this one. Like, how is Barry Allen a child of himself? One of the Flashes and the original Silver Age Flash. Well, in the Crisis on Infinite Earths comic crossover event, Barry ends up running so fast that he ruptures the time barrier. This kills him, but also it converts his physical being into lightning. And since he was running so fast, he also travels through time, because, you know, comics. In fact, he travels back to the day he got his powers, perhaps because he was thinking about how that one day led to all of this. However, when his physical form, now lightning, travels through time, he actually becomes the lightning bolt that struck himself. So Barry Allen gave Barry Allen his powers. So in a way, of Flashes creating other Flashes, Barry Allen is the child of Barry Allen. Yeah, you heard me right. It was also later strongly implied that Barry's soul resides inside the Speed Force, the source of power for all speedsters. So technically, if you want to look at it like that as well, every speedster who uses the Speed Force is also a child of Barry. And at 9, Velocity. Velocity is a clone of Jay Garrett created by Brain and Monsieur Mala and sold to Ratu Benin, dictator of Mali. Velocity is unleashed upon the outsiders when they're discovered discovered by Venom, and the Speedster comes close to defeating the team while Metamorpho attacks him with acid and manages to overpower him. He's later taken by Green Lantern, who states that the Outsiders cannot be trusted. He also has all the powers of the Flash, except with one flaw, that he cannot survive outside of his suit for long. And I mean, it's certainly a badass suit, because like, look at that thing. If I wore that thing, I'd never want to take it off. Add the fact that I can't take it off, I would die, and then there's no way that you're getting that thing off me. And Velocity, like Jay Garrick, doesn't need access to the Speed Force to run at superhuman speeds, which is certainly beneficial if, say, the Speed Force were to die because the Spectre had to unlock its power during Crisis, and then it threatened, you know, to end life on all planets, and literally every other Earth was destroyed, and you were stranded at the vanishing point, you know. And it ate Jenny Onatz. Jenny Onatz was the granddaughter of Barry Allen and a speedster like him. She was a member of the Legion of Superheroes under the name XS. Despite her ancestry though, Jenny did not at first display any signs of super speed. However, the Dominators, knowing her family heritage, captured her. And at the sight of seeing her father tortured, her latent super speed powers did activate. She managed to escape with her father before stray fire from the Dominators caused their base to explode, and during the Legion's first trip to the 20th century, XS was separated from them. She ended up meeting her cousin Impulse and became good friends with him. She ended up revealing how she was participating in an archaeological dig in the future, and XS fought side by side with Impulse and other speedsters during the events of Dead Heat. Afterwards, the 27th century Flash fixed her grandfather's cosmic treadmill, enabling her to go home. Unfortunately, she overshot, encountering 2 further incarnations of the Legion before getting back to her time. Impulse, though, left her a goodbye note in the building that she was participating in excavating, so that's sweet. And at 7, Malcolm Thawne. Malcolm Thawne is the lost twin brother of Barry Allen. He is Cobalt Blue, one of a number of evil counterparts of the Flash that wields the blue flame. On the stormy night of May 13th, 2 pregnant women came to the office of Fallville, Iowa's Dr. Gilmore. However, the doctor had been drinking that night and he had sent his nurse home. The child of one of the women, Charlie and Thawne, had been strangled by its own umbilical cord, and Gilmore was too intoxicated to save the baby. However, luckily for Gilmore, lightning caused a blackout in the hospital. Gilmore quickly enters the room where another woman, Nora Allen, gave birth, and Gilmore, to cover up the death of Charlene's baby, in the darkness quickly removes the first baby and then closes the baby's mouth so that it doesn't cry, and then he gives that twin to the Thawne family, telling the Allen family that one of their children didn't make it. Yeah, the twin that remained with the Allens was called Barry and grew up to be the Flash, and the other twin, however, was raised by the Thawnes and was named Malcolm. This is also the distant, like, great times 20 grandfather of Eobard Thawne. Yeah, the Reverse Flash. So Eobard and Barry actually share the same blood, which is freaking nuts. Damn, I did not know that, although I probably should have. And at 6, Jay West. Jay West and his twin sister Iris were born to the 3rd Flash, Wally West, and his wife Linda Park. Although the twins were initially miscarried as the result of an attack by Zoom, Linda's pregnancy was miraculously restored during a later battle, somehow. When Wally went into the Speed Force during a battle with Superboy Prime, he brought Linda and the infant twins with him, and spent some time in an Earth-like world inhabited by an alternate version of Jay Garrick, and they traveled to another planet occupied by technologically advanced aliens who had dealings with a Flash in the past. Yep, this is actually true. When they were first born, Jay and his sister exhibited no signs of having inherited their father's powers. However, after turning 3 months old, their metabolisms sped up and they began to age rapidly and exhibited powers. Their alien hosts, I mean, like, not like they were hosted, like the aliens that were living with the Wests, I guess I should say, taught Linda the basics of operating machinery that would stabilize the twins' powers, and I guess kind of halt their accelerated aging. Jay once overheard his father explain this to a Justice League teammate though, and he mentioned the possibility that the twins could age so much that they died. Deeply frightened by this, he kept this information to himself, but later on did reveal it to his sister, who she revealed that she already kind of guessed that. I mean, like, it's kind of obvious. Halfway through into number 5, Nora West Allen. In a previous timeline, Nora went back to the past to finally meet her father and became part of Team Flash, working alongside her parents and her friends. However, unbeknownst to the team at the time, Nora was working with Eobard Thawne, who was imprisoned in 2049, on a secret agenda to destroy Cicada's dagger, and so that he would be saved from execution, whereas Nora was trying to save Barry from vanishing in a future crisis. After Team Flash defeated Cicada by administering administering the metahuman cure to her younger self and destroying her uncle's dagger, Nora was then erased from existence once a new timeline started to set in. However, in the current post-crisis timeline created by Oliver Queen and the Paragons, Nora is a vigilante operating in 2049 who fights metahuman criminals such as Godspeed alongside her younger brother Bart. During one fight with Godspeed though, he went to the Flash Museum and used the cosmic treadmill to travel back in time. Fearing that they would never be able to find him if he got away, Nora and Bart broke their family's #1 rule and decided to follow him, eventually ending up in the present. Well, I guess our present, not their present. Saying present is kind of a broad term. However, Nora, I guess this post-crisis Nora, grew up with stories of her other timeline self. Of like, her parents were telling her about her other version, which is pretty messed up if you ask me. Like your parents going on and on about another version of literally you that you desperately have to try to live up to. Yeah, that's messed up. This isn't in the Arrowverse, by the way. And for inertia, the bitter feud between the Allen family and the Thawne family would span generations, although despite them actually kind of sharing blood. Even in the 30th century, President Thawne sought to recruit Bart Allen in his revenge campaign against the Allens, since Bart was half Thawne himself. When that failed, Thawne mixed Bart's DNA with Thawne genetic material to create a speedster clone who he named Thaddeus Thawne, or I guess Thaddeus Thawne. Either way. Come on, really? Alliteration. Whereas Bart grew up in a hyper-accelerated world, Thaddeus' childhood was the exact opposite of this. Cause you know, reverse Flash. His development was super slow, which led to the young speedster to become more calculating and methodical. You know, the exact traits a sociopath has. Thaddeus was also taught to hate the Allen family, and Impulse in particular. In addition to this modification, Thaddeus' growth and development was slowed down. This is in contrast to Bart's accelerated development. However, after killing Bart, Wally West had other plans for him. Upon hearing of Bart's death, an enraged Flash, this Flash being Wally West, hunted Inertia down. Though he thought of killing him, Flash decided instead to do something worse. He used his abilities to slow Inertia's movements down to the point where he was totally immobile, essentially a living statue, and then he placed Inertia on display in the Flash Museum, facing statues of Bart Allen as Impulse and Kid Flash. Though he could still think, see, and hear in normal time, Inertia was doomed to spend eternity in a state of near total paralysis, staring at images of Bart, plus being gawked at by everyone coming to the Flash Museum. Oh, that's so brutal. Getting close to the end, and in #3, Bart Allen. Bart Allen was the product of the union between two families that had been bitter rivals for centuries. His father, Don Allen, was the son of Barry Allen, the second Flash, and his mother was Maloney Thawne, daughter of the Earth government president and descendant of Flash villains Cobalt Blue and Professor Zoom. Bart was born with his grandfather's speed, and he had an incredibly high metabolism that also caused him to age at hyperspeed. When he was chronologically 2 years old, physically, he looked like he was 12. After Wally helped him solve his aging problem, Bart helped Wally defeat Cobra. Bart then moved to Manchester, Alabama with Max Mercury. Max had also used his connections to supply Bart with a birth certificate, stuff like that, passport, you know the deal. And Bart began the 9th grade at Manchester Junior High, when he was probably like supposed to be like 4. He managed to make quite a few friends, chief among them being Carol Buckland. Max continued to train him in the art of super speed, having him run off courses while dodging axes and knives and solving jigsaw puzzles in midair. You know, stuff like that, I guess. Ultimately enlisting his aid to battle his old foe Savitar. During this time, Bart served a brief stint in the New Titans before becoming one of the founding members of Young Justice, before getting killed. But ultimately, in at #2, the Tornado Twins. The Tornado Twins, Don and Don Allen, are the children of Iris West and Barry Allen. In one of the possible futures, instead of being heroes though, they turned into supervillains and terrorized the future Central City. According to Professor Zoom, one of the reasons for this change was because of Barry's absence in their lives, which made them misguided and hated their own father, which is weird because in the Flash show, Nora was like obsessed with her dad, but you know, whatever. Don, D-O-N, is the father of Bart Allen, and Dawn, D-A-W-N, is the mother of Jenny Ognats. The duo though ended when Dawn was killed by a Dominator in the Flash number 769, nice, in June of 2021. These are pretty damn powerful characters, and they're at #2 because you kinda have to count them together, so yeah, 2 people is definitely gonna be more powerful than 1. But this is actually, interestingly enough, supposed to be the twins that Barry had in the original Arrowverse timeline. However, seemingly after Flashpoint, it went from Dawn to Nora, and then it went from Nora to Nora and Bart. This seems to be hinted at since during the 100th episode of The Flash that takes place in season 5, a 2015 Thawne disguised as Harrison Wells assumes that Nora's name is Dawn before being corrected by Barry. And finally, in at number 1, the Forces. Okay, this is certainly going off book here, but the most recent season of The Flash introduced 3 additional forces into the Arrowverse. While recreating the Speed Force with the power of love and positive thinking, Barry and Iris ended up creating 3 new forces along with it. For the first half of the season, these are kind of the big bads of the show. However, for some reason, since they were created along with the new Speed Force, they refer to these forces, including the Speed Force itself, which materializes as Nora Allen, Barry's mother, as their kids. Which is weird enough given that technically Barry has now given birth to his mother in a sense, but by that definition, the forces are also literally the most powerful children of the Flash. They're literal forces of nature. They refer to themselves as a family. The Sage Force calls the Strength Force his sister, and Barry and Iris mom and dad. And technically, without Barry and Iris, they wouldn't have been born. However, since I'm referring to the Arrowverse versions of these forces, plenty of diehard comic fans are going to be mad at me, but that's fine. Barry literally gave birth to the Speed Force, and that's enough for me to claim that they're his most powerful children. Deal with it.
Number 10, Crusader. Crusader is the daughter of X-Men team member Rogue and Avenger Captain America. I know, a weird combination. But in the reality of Earth 9811, these two ended up together after the heroes and villains on Battleworld decided to call a truce. Remaining there, they settled down and raised families, putting their differences aside. I'm not sure how their relationship worked, with Rogue not really being able to touch people and all at this point, or how she had a child considering that, but perhaps, like on Earth 616, she eventually was able to work through the trauma causing this side effect of her powers. Or perhaps the Captain America of Earth 9811 was immune to her involuntary energy and power draining effects. Either way, Sarah is their daughter. She gets much of her power from her mother, or rather she gets much of her power from the power her mother had absorbed in her day, meaning that Sarah is super strong, durable, and can fly. She is also considered worthy enough to lift Thor's hammer and wields her father's shield. Number 9, Wolverine. I really wanted to put Laura Kinney higher up on this list because, well, I love her so much, but unfortunately the psionics are just always pushing some of my favorite and most powerful characters further down on these lists. Those psionics. Oh well. Laura Kinney as X-23 and now Wolverine is still one of the most powerful children of the X-Men around. Some argue that she is more clone, while others argue that she is more biological offspring of Logan, but in reality, she's kind of a bit of both. She was created as a female clone of Wolverine after his genetic material was combined with that of her creator, scientist Sarah Kinney. Sarah noticed that there were damage spots basically in the samples of Logan's genetic material that they had, which was why their cloning process had been unsuccessful up to this point. And so she used her own genetic material to patch those rough spots, which made Laura a female clone. Sarah was forced to carry Laura to term as a surrogate by her jealous colleague Xander Rice, as punishment for even creating the female clone to begin with, a strategy that admittedly had not been approved. Laura has powers similar to her father. She has a regenerative healing factor and was also trained from birth to be a skilled fighter, bodyguard, and assassin. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn about more children of the X-Men, there are a lot out there in the multiverse. Be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Chimera. Chimera is the daughter of Storm and likely Black Panther, who hails from the alternate reality of 13729. Yeah, sadly Storm and T'Challa have never had a child together in the main continuity. I know, it's a bit of a bummer. Unless they had like a real secret child that we just don't know about yet, but I doubt it. Chimera seems to have inherited the powers of her mother, but also shares a connection to the Earth, which allows her to draw on and harness its energy. She is also a skilled tracker and can communicate telepathically with animals. I'd also assume, as she's the daughter of Storm, that she's a skilled combatant as well. As while Storm is more well known for her goddess status and weather manipulation powers, she is also an extremely skilled fighter. And if she's Black Panther's daughter, then she should definitely be a skilled fighter. I mean, you got two amazing parents that are both amazing fighters, so just saying. Number 7, Charles Xavier II. Charles Xavier II is the son of Charles Xavier and Mystique, if you can believe that. I know, it's pretty shocking. Charles Xavier II was technically born into the reality of Earth 616, where we later find out that while Mystique actually took the form of Moira when giving birth, Charles actually knew that he was in a relationship with Raven, so it wasn't like a trick of hers. They were actually just wanted to be together, I guess. This version of Charles, however, is an all grown up one from the alternate future of Earth 13729. When his powers first manifested, he accidentally killed his adoptive mother and ended up later joining forces with his half-brother Raze, another child of Mystique weeks, sired by Wolverine, another child of the X-Men. Charles Xavier II has a brilliant and conniving mind, and like his father, is an immensely gifted telepath, capable of using his powers to bend others to his will. Number 6. Polaris. Polaris is the daughter of Magneto, and while you might not think of Magneto as being an X-Men, considering, he started out as an X-Men villain, he has also worked with the team before and even served as a member himself. Heck, at one point he was in charge of the whole New Mutants crew, let's not forget that. Magneto may have some questionable methods when it comes to getting justice that put him on the spectrum of villain, but I think at the end of the day, he's just trying to do what's best for mutants, or at least what he thinks is best for mutant kind. Polaris, like her father, also has magnetic-based powers, which, like her father, are also pretty impressive. Polaris is considered an alpha-level mutant and recently got to join the X-Men team herself after being elected to join them in the Krakoan X-Men elections. Psychic elections. Imagine if we could all just vote psychically. That would be awesome. That would be so much easier. You would just like sit down and you'd be like, who do I want to vote for? Done. Number 5. Cable. Cable is the son of Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, non-X member Madeline Pryor, who later becomes the villain known as the Goblin Queen, and another X-Man's, Jean Grey, who kind of becomes like an adoptive mother, but who also possesses Madeline's memories of raising baby Christopher. Because comics. Cable is Nathan Christopher Charles Summers, often referred to as just Nathan Summers or really just Cable, although back in the day we did know him as Baby Christopher. Cable as a baby was kidnapped by Apocalypse and infected with the techno-organic virus. This is the only thing that makes him weak-ish, but really he is still amazingly strong as he can even fend off that virus, containing it to one side of his body using his psionic powers. That in and of itself is pretty impressive, as the techno-organic virus is generally known for being, well, unstoppable. Even with his psionic powers mainly preoccupied, Cable is still a hard one to beat, as he has so many combatant-based skills that he brings to the table, and he is also an experienced time traveler besides. Number 4. Rachel Summers. Yes, get ready, because many of the most powerful X-Kids out there just happen to be Summers related, so yeah, get ready for that. Honestly, I've always wanted to do a video just to explain the complicated nature that is the Summers and Grey family tree, which honestly is a lot, and it's very timey-wimey. Rachel herself is one of those very complex kids of theirs. She is the daughter of Jean Grey and Scott Summers from the alternate Earth of 811. In that reality, she was made into a hound, a weapon used to hunt down mutants, even being one herself. Rachel is an extremely powerful telepath and telekinetic who also has the ability to chronoskim and manipulate time, even traveling through it. Rachel is also known for being an avatar of the Phoenix, at one time actually considered the true avatar for it, but then later having the power sort of dialed down to a mere echo of it. So she was no longer the true avatar, they were just like, you just have a thing, and it's not even like the real Phoenix Force, but it's like a version of it. Still, the seeming piece or echo of the Phoenix Force that resides within her has been known to flare up from time to time, or her connection to the Phoenix Force, however we want to see that, occasionally boosting Rachel to an off-the-charts level of power. But like I said, that doesn't happen all the time. Number 3. Hope Summers. Hope is the adopted daughter of Cable, who was originally known as the Mutant Messiah Baby. Cable saved Hope from Bishop, who basically wanted to destroy her. In Bishop's reality, the Mutant Messiah would end up causing the event that led to the oppression and persecution of mutants. However, in Cable's reality, the Mutant Messiah would grow up to become a savior, so you can see why these two were opposed on this topic. For the X-Men of Earth 616, the Mutant Messiah was the first new mutant to have been born since basically M-Day, and so she brought hope to the mutants of the 616 reality. Cable body-slided with Hope to another time to raise her in safety. He would end up naming Hope after her adoptive mother, his love who died, Hope, and she got the Summers name from Cable himself. But although she looks a lot like Jean, she actually has no biological relation to the Summers or the Grey families, at least not that we know of. Hope's mutant abilities allow her to copy the powers of anyone within a certain range. Hope also gains access to these powers without struggling at all to use them, receiving them basically at their peak level and with the auto knowledge basically of how to use them. So if you're like, oh, she's gotta like figure it out, no, she's just like instant god mode with those powers basically. Number 2. Scarlet Witch. Wanda is known for being one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe. She has used her powers to completely warp reality the world over, and her chaos magic has pulled off other immensely world-changing feats, such as flipping the alignment of all major heroes and villains in the comics during the events of Axis. Initially, her chaos chaos magic powers were believed to be somewhat mutant in origin. In fact, they were kind of presented initially as like Jinx-like mystical mutant abilities during her first appearances. However, we've since learned that both Wanda and her superpowered brother Pietro, aka Quicksilver, were never really mutants at all, nor were they related to Magneto. However, they still spent a good amount of their life around Magneto, who secretly believed them to be his children, and then another good amount of time thinking that he was their actual father, until it was revealed that this was all due to manipulation by the High Evolutionary. High Evolutionary just coming in and messing pretty much everybody up when it comes to their backstories and origins. Wanda herself has never really gotten along with the X-Men, especially since the events of M-Day, but she is still considered, I think, a part of Magneto's family, and a powerful one at that, regardless of her status as a mutant or a non-mutant. I know there are some people out there that want to be like, it never happened, but like, they still spent a lot of time together thinking that they were family, so I think we can still count it, friends. Also, make Wanda a mutant again. Do it. Make it happen. Give me Wanda and Quicksilver back. Number 1. X-Man. X-Man is Nathaniel Grey, the lab-born child made by combining the genetic materials of both Jean Grey and Cyclops. So basically like Cable, but if he had been made perfectly by villain Mr. Sinister. He actually hails from the alternate reality of AOA, Age of Apocalypse, Earth 295. Here, Sinister created him to use as his own weapon, but of course, Nate being so powerful, managed to escape Sinister and instead ended up being raised by Forge of Earth 295. He is considered one of the most powerful mutants of all time, which would also make him one of the most powerful children of the X-Men out there. Nate can warp reality, resurrect the dead, resurrect himself, travel to alternate Earths and dimensions, and even manipulate the time stream. He is basically the most OP of characters when it comes to the Marvel Universe. And if you've seen artwork of him, you will probably recognize him as someone who looks like Mutant Jesus, which yes, he is god level, so that is the point. Number 10. Kristoff and Kadira Von Doom. Kristoff and Kadira Von Doom are the children of Storm and Doctor Doom. They come from the novel series X-Men The Chaos Engine, which is actually a trilogy wherein we explore what would happen if 3 great villains took control of the Marvel Universe, creating their own version of a perfect world using the Cosmic Cube. It starts off with Doom's variation on this world. In this reality, Doctor Doom has made Storm his wife, and she rules by his side as his Empress. The union of these powerful characters produces 2 children, Kristoff and Kadira. We can assume, of course, being the children of both Doom and Storm, that they would be physically, mentally, and demonstrably powerful when it came to their abilities, especially being raised by these 2 powerhouses. Also, if I wasn't clear about this is an alternate reality, so if you're like, when did this happen? It is not main continuity. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more children of the X-Men, they have a lot of kids if we, surf through the multiverse, so we could do it for you. If you want that part 3, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 9. Nocturne. Nocturne is the daughter of Nightcrawler and Scarlet Witch. Obviously, not from the main continuity. In fact, Talia Wagner is known for being a part of a multiversal hero team, the Exiles. Nocturne is from the alternate reality of Earth 2182. In fact, back on her home reality, which first appeared in Millennial Visions, Talia is also known as a member of the X-Men team, fighting alongside her father, Nightcrawler, who is actually their field leader. She is a low-level telepath with incredible superhuman agility skills, the ability to wall crawl, and the ability to fire powerful brimstone hex energy bolts, something inherited from both her father and her mother. Nocturne's physical appearance is also similar to her father's, a bit demonic looking, and of course, blue. All my blue X-Men. Top 10 blue X-Men. Actually, I feel like there's a lot of X-Men that are blue. Or mutants that are blue, maybe? There's a lot of blue mutants, for sure. I don't know about X-Men team members. Number 8. Jimmy Hudson. Jimmy Hudson is the son of Wolverine from the alternate reality of Earth 1610. His powers are similar to his father's, but in this reality, they're believed to work a little bit differently. As opposed to just being insane healing powers, Jimmy's power set in this universe as a mutant is believed to be based more in survival. So these powers aren't necessarily just about healing, but survival instincts and capability, meaning that Jimmy is just much better at surviving and evolving to survive than anyone else alive on the planet. And I mean that because in this reality, Wolverine eventually dies, so really Jimmy is the only one left alive who's really good at surviving. Jimmy Hudson has also been bonded to a poison before and gained control of his poison, which are basically alien-like beings resembling symbiotes in look and abilities, but ultimately a different alien race themselves, called poisons. So yeah. Jimmy is the son of Wolverine and Magneto's wife, Magda Lencher, although Wolverine urges him through a letter when the truth of his connection to Jimmy is revealed that he actually shouldn't focus too much on, who his biological parents are. Jimmy was raised by adoptive parents. His dad actually served served with Logan in the war and agreed to look after Jimmy in his father's place, even giving the young boy his own family name. Hudson. Number 7. Esme. Esme is one of the main Stepford cuckoos. Well, I mean, I guess they're all pretty main, but you know what I mean. She's probably one of the most well-known if we're talking offhand about how many of the cuckoos you can name. Esme and the other cuckoos are basically like the children of Emma Frost, although as I've said before, not children that she had consensually. And I didn't say that before in this list, but if you've heard me talk about the Stepford cuckoos and their relation to Emma, yeah. Instead, these were lab babies basically made from Emma's eggs that were stolen from Emma while she was in a comatose state. Esme, like the other cuckoos, is kind of like a genetic clone as well as a child of Emma's, and Emma actually does consider the cuckoos to be like her daughters. She treats them as though they were her own flesh and blood, and often her own responsibility, kinda stepping in to like play mom sometimes, although she does give them freedom to make their own mistakes. I guess what I mean is Emma isn't known for being like a controlling kind of parent. She's like, I'm here when you need me, otherwise you do you. More recently in the comics, Esme, known for her diamond form and powerful telepathic abilities, teamed up and primarily dated young Cable. Well, technically all the cuckoos were dating him at one point, though I would say Esme was basically the main squeeze of young Cable, and the sister that he was most taken by while he was dating all of them. And if you're like, whoa, how did that happen? The Stepford cuckoos, they share things because they're kind of like a hive mind. So they're like, we'll just all date this person. It's cool. Also Krakoa. Everyone's dating everyone. Number 6. Akihiro. Akihiro is the son of Wolverine and his wife Itsu. Unfortunately, before Akihiro was even born, his life took a turn for the worse. Along with inheriting his father's powers, I think he also inherited some of his tragic luck. Wolverine has the worst luck, I think. His mother Itsu was killed before she could give birth to him, assassinated. The child was believed dead, but in reality he had been cut from her womb and possibly, due to his inherited healing powers, miraculously survived. Although, that's not clear, because usually your powers don't manifest until puberty, but sometimes your powers manifest when you're in the womb. I mean, look at Professor X with Cassandra Nova. Apparently that's a thing that happened. Akihiro would grow up and become a pawn of the villain known as Romulus. For most of his life, he'd also be known as Daken, a cruel nickname given to him when he was a child, being raised by his adoptive parents. The nickname was given to him because of his mixed race appearance, being part American and part Japanese. Though to be clear, his parents weren't the ones that gave it to him. It was people around his parents. Akihiro's powers are similar to Wolverine's, though his bone claws are a little bit different in terms of placement and appearance. Like his father, Akihiro is also known for being a skilled fighter as well. The apple does not fall far from the tree when it comes to fighting abilities. Number 5. Xandra Naramani. Xandra is Professor X's daughter, who is created out of his genetic material and that of his lover's genetic material, the Shi'ar Magistrix Lilandra Naramani, after both of them were believed dead. As such, Xandra grew up to become Shi'ar royalty and also spent a good amount of her life hunted because of this, with various parties attempting to use her for their own means. Xandra is an extremely gifted telepath. She can manipulate others' minds, read minds, and can create hyper-realistic telepathic illusions. Number 4. Ruby Summers. She was the ex-offspring used in our oh-so-clickable thumb for the part 1 to this list, and although she was on my extended list for that part 1, my long brainstorm that I came up with, I didn't get around to talking about her because I kind of reached a point where there were too many Summers children on that list, and I was like, I don't want to make this a top 10 children of Cyclops. We got that list, and also that's not what this list is. What can I say? Sykes got strong genes. That's why Mr. Sinister is so obsessed after all and is known as the #1 fan of the Summers Club. Scott Summers is Ruby's dad in the alternate reality she hails from, and Emma Frost is her mother. This makes Ruby fairly powerful, not at the level of Hope or X-Man, but still pretty impressive. She's also super cool looking, which is an added bonus. Ruby hails from the alternate Earth of 1191, the home reality of famous X-Men ally Bishop. Ruby is also capable of emitting optic blasts like her dad and his brothers, but she has more control over when and how she emits these blasts, unlike her dad who's like, I literally need a visor. Ruby also comes with her Ruby form, which like her mother's diamond form grants her invulnerability and pretty much immortality. Number 3. Olivier Raven. Olivier Raven is legally known as Olivier Olivier Lebeau, and is one of the alternate reality children of Gambit and Rogue. Honestly, I feel like there are not enough of these kids out in the multiverse. I don't know if that's just me. For a couple as famous as Gambit and Rogue, I mean, you would think that we'd have a lot more kids from them, at least through the multiverse. Though admittedly, I'm not quite sure that Rogue and Gambit are really the kid-having type, at least from what I've seen in the main continuity. They seem pretty content with just having their fur babies right now. So maybe they just aren't super into having kids as a family. Olivier hails from the reality of Earth 41001, the reality of Gen Next, a group Ollie is part of. He has powers similar to his mother's, except he has better control over them and is able to choose when and how much power, life energy, and memories he absorbs via physical contact, or doesn't absorb in cases where he just, wants to make physical contact without using his powers. He can also absorb powers on a more permanent level, although he has less control, it seems, over when this happens. Like his father, he also seems to have some charm-based powers. Either that, or he's just charming. Number 2, Proteus. Proteus is the son of Moira McTaggart, who before I would count more as like an ex-ally, but with recent revelations, we can definitely consider her a member in the same way we might consider someone like Charles Xavier. It turns out that Moira herself was a mutant this whole time, possessing unique reincarnation powers. She has also been known for being a leader and teacher of X-Men groups before, including the time when she led a team that Professor X then recruited, sending them into Krakoa to rescue the original X-Men. Not Krakoa as we know it now, but Krakoa as it was back in the day when it was like a monster island. Proteus is Kevin McTaggart, son of Joseph and Moira McTaggart. He is currently one of the 5 on Krakoa, and his powers as part of that team are mainly used to warp reality, allowing the non-viable eggs that Egg, formerly known as Gold Balls, produces to become viable for life. These eggs are then used to grow new versions of fallen mutants. Proteus is an Omega level mutant who requires hosts to survive. Initially, Kevin had a body, but now he's basically just pure energy. The hosts he controls and feeds off of eventually are exhausted and killed by that energy drain, making him not just a powerful psionic mutant, but also a powerful energy vampire as well, unintentionally. Number 1, Legion. Legion is the son of Professor Charles Xavier that was conceived when he had a love affair with Gabrielle Haller, which is where Legion gets his legal last name, as his given name is David Haller. Legion is so powerful because he suffers from a severe dissociative identity disorder, where he has more than 100 personas residing within him. Each persona has a number, many have names, and they each have their own specific power set that show up whenever they take over. Because of this, there is almost nothing that Legion isn't capable of. He can manipulate matter and time. We've seen him time travel and completely warp reality as a result of his possible abilities. He also has some pretty powerful hair, which I gotta say, I'm happy that he still rocks even now in the current modern day comics. He's still got that sweet hair. So tall. Number 10, Van-El. Van-El is the imaginary son of Superman that he is made to believe he had in the Superman Annual from 1985, Annual number 11, from the original Superman series. Superman ends up being put in a trance by a plant that starts to kind of attack him as part of a villainous plot. While he's in this trance, he sees what life would be like if he had remained on Krypton and grew up there. He ends up married and with a son named Van-El and a daughter. We don't see Van-El's abilities when it comes to powers, but he is a Kryptonian with both his mom and his dad being from that planet, which means that on Earth, he would probably be at least at Superman levels. Unfortunately, he is just a dream, and Superman heartbreakingly realizes that this world is false and he must wake up. It's actually a pretty sad issue, to be real. This story is like tragic. Number 9, Sir-El. Sir-El isn't a real child of Superman, although at first we actually thought she was one. Sir-El appeared to be the daughter of Lois Lane and Supes from a distant future. She even looked a lot like both of her parents and demonstrated similar powers, but in the end we learned that she was simply created as part of a plot to deliver the Yes virus, which would help Brainiac take over the world. She was created by combining Kryptonian DNA with a human, grafting the DNA sort of over top of her human self. Originally, she was a human known as Mia, and when she learned of her true origin, she destroyed herself in order to save the world. Sir-El was also implanted with all the memories of her parents and being raised by them, so to her, her life as their daughter had felt very real, despite the fact that we learned she was really a fake. Fake daughters, I feel like, should still count, especially if they have memories of being raised. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you are loving my super comfy sweater, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. And if you don't like my comfy sweater, don't tell me, because I don't want to know. It's really comfy, okay guys? I got it for $5 at Value Village, don't judge me. Number 8. Superwoman. Superwoman is Kara Kent, the daughter of Superman and Lois Lane from the alternate reality of Earth 3839. This is the reality we explore in John Byrne's series Superman and Batman Generations. Here, Kara is seen as having the same level of power as Superman, at least initially. Eventually we learn though that Kara really only possesses half the strength of her dad's powers. Oh dear. This means that although she has worked alongside her dad as his sidekick under the name Supergirl for years, she is no match when her evil brother shows up to destroy her and her wedding. Kara was becoming a hero all her own, taking up the mantle of Superwoman and joining forces with her partner in crime fighting and her partner in romance, Bruce Wayne Jr., Batman's son. The two were married, but Kara's brother, manipulated by Lex Luthor to believe that both his father and Kara had actually taken away the powers that he should have been born with, shows up to the wedding and kills Kara shortly thereafter. Number 7. Supergirl. This is the imaginary daughter of Superman, but she still likely exists in some alternate reality, because technically every imagining is like an alternate reality, if that makes sense. So she exists probably somewhere out in the multiverse other than just Superman's dream, and so I'm gonna count her. Also, the dream featuring her in retrospect to the rest of the universe is like really tragic, so I feel like for that reason alone, we should just talk about it, because it's a pretty cool moment in Injustice, because tragic things are cool when they are safely contained in fictional worlds and can make you feel emotions without actually having to deal with the consequences of the tragedies that the emotions come from. Supergirl is Lara Lane Kent, the daughter Lois and Clark would have had in the event that Joker and Harley hadn't made Superman believe Lois was Doomsday and made him kill her. In this very different world, Superman and his daughter, Supergirl, are both still heroes. Her powers are very similar to her father's, and while she isn't quite as experienced as he is, she is still on a similar level when it comes to what she's capable of. Number 6. Carol and Jane Kent. Carol and Jane Kent are the daughters of Superman and Lois from the comic series Superman Secret Identity. We learn of their powers in the final issue, issue number 4, which acts as the conclusion to our tale as Clark moves into his twilight years and his kids mostly take over. Initially, he and Lois weren't sure if they had any powers at all, but many years later they find out that their kids' powers did manifest. It happened to Carol and Jane, their twin daughters, in their teenage years. As adults, they are initially a little less experienced than Clark, but eventually go on to replace him as he leaves more and more of the heroics up to them. By the end of the series, I'd say power level wise they are about at the same place as their dad, or perhaps even a little bit stronger than he was in his prime. Also, Superman's Secret Identity is just a really well written story, so if you haven't checked out this miniseries, I highly recommend you go and give it a gander. Also, I can't believe it's from the early 2000s. Like, to me, it feels much more like modern day, like now, not like early 2000s. I mean that as a compliment. Number 5. Supergirl. Seriously, get ready for a list full of Supergirls, cause unsurprisingly, a lot of Superman's kids take up that mantle. This Supergirl is Lara Kent from Frank Miller's Dark Knight Alternate Earth, aka Earth 31. Here, Lara is the daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman. She stands out due to her very blue hair. Being a hybrid baby, she ends up inheriting both her parents' powers, making her super powerful and an immensely skilled fighter, having been trained by her mother in the way of the Amazons. One thing that makes her unique as well in comparison to some of the other super kids out there is that she believes her powers make her better than non-powered people, and she actually strives to one day rule over the non-powered people of Earth. A little bit villainous there, Lara. I mean, she's not gonna do it because she's like, I know my dad's like, these people, we gotta protect them. But she's definitely thinking about it. Number 4. Superman. Jonathan Kent is the natural-born son of Lois Lane and Clark Kent, aka Kal-El, Superman, from the main continuity. He was born during the events that caused a reset of the universe when the New 52 basically came about. He and his family were relocated to the New 52 Prime Earth, even though they were originally from New Earth, meaning that for a while we had 2 Supermans on planet Earth, although one was operating in secret, that one being John's dad. John would become good friends with another super son, Damian Wayne, Batman's semi-natural born son. Well, not really. His whole existence is also an interesting story, but enough of that. He's definitely Batman's biological son at least, so we can count that. Damian and John initially didn't get along but would find common ground and then become the best of friends. Of course, then John went to space and grew up rapidly, and currently in the comics, he has also taken up the mantle of Superman after his father, now that he's back on Earth. John's powers are at a very similar scope and level, but as a human Kryptonian hybrid, he apparently does have the potential to become even more powerful than Clark. Hybrid babies are the best babies in terms of superpowers. Number 3. The Golden Child. This version of John Kent comes to us from the alternate Earth of Earth 31. Yep, we're going back to the Dark Knight universe of Frank Miller. In one of his latest Dark Knight universe stories, it was revealed that baby John, who is now a young child here, also born of Superman and Wonder Woman, is actually something completely new when it comes to his power levels. Also, he doesn't have blue hair. No blue hair for John. His sister Lara even suggests that while she agrees with her father about teaching John, that they should soon be prepared to actually learn from him because he's that powerful. At the end of Dark Knight Returns the Golden Child, we see the true extent of John's powers when he takes on Darkseid, calling him basically an old fart the entire time, as he defeats him pretty easily. Darkseid attempts to use his Omega beams only to have young John swallow that power, absorbing it, and then firing it back with his neutron vision powers. Totally unique powers. John is also able to protect his sister Lara in the fight, making her intangible somehow before both her and he fade away, seemingly transforming both of them into some type of energy? I think that's what happened. That's kind of a weird comic, but yes, it did happen. Number 2. Hyperman. Hyperman is the son of Superman and Wonder Woman who comes from the reality belonging to the Kingdom Come story and follow-up story, The Kingdom. In that story, little baby John Kent is kidnapped by Gog. He ends up being rescued by 2 different versions of his parents and his godfather Batman, but ends up with himself in the end, his future self. The hero, Hyperman, who also rules and guards over all of Hyper Time. Hyperman raises the child himself, so raises himself. Continuing the circle and pretty much guaranteeing that John Kent will grow up to become Hyperman, a time-traveling, dimension-hopping hero, because I assume that's how Hyperman was raised, by himself. And then when that one becomes older, he'll have to raise another one. I feel like this is a time loop and it will never end. Number 1. Supergirl. This version of Supergirl is Ariella Kent, the daughter of Linda Danvers' Supergirl and Superman of Earth 1. Yeah, it might sound weird to think that Supergirl and Superman got it on and ended up having a kid together, but remember, this is Linda Danvers' Supergirl. No relation to Supes, and it's also a Superman from another alternate reality because it's Earth 1 Superman, who is therefore even further removed to any kind of relation or affiliation with Linda. Ariella Kent ended up kind of being time or reality displaced due to continuities needing to be altered and set right, but she is still probably out there somewhere in the cosmos, somewhere in the multiverse, although we haven't seen her in the comics for a long time. Ariella was known for her massive power levels, which as a child she had a hard time actually fully comprehending, meaning that wherever she went she generally caused a lot of destruction. Accidentally. This is what happens when you let a super powerful child fly around space and travel through time without any parental supervision. Ariella was also a hybrid baby, being born part Matrix, aka lab-made semi-alien goo, that's basically what the Matrix is, and part Kryptonian. There's gonna be people that are gonna be like, that's not what the Matrix is. I'm like, no, DC Matrix. Look it up. It was a weird thing, but it happened.